Alright, we now are trying to reconcile the expenses. We know we are out $81.06, and normally you might think you now have to go through and check off every single expense item, and if you've got a lot of expenses, that can be an awful lot of work. So is there a better way and a more efficient way of going about it? The answer is yes, and to some extent it depends on how you hold your information. It's an electronic way of comparing the information. Now, in most cases, as is the case here, the data is held electronically in an accounting file. Most of you should also be able to access your bank statement data electronically as well. Even if you don't subscribe to a bank link feed where your data is paid for and is downloaded in a particular format, you should just be able to go onto your bank with internet banking and download your information into some sort of CSV file, which can be used by spreadsheets. Now, the first thing we need to do is, in our accounting software, is to produce a report to compare with the bank. Now, in MOB, the best way to access this report is through the General Ledger detail. You select the period that we need, which is from the 1st of July to the 30th of September, and then we will produce this report. So this is a report of all the information in the bank account. What we now need to do is export that report and have it available in an Excel format for use and comparing it with the bank statements. Now, I prefer to export out of a lot of accountancy programs using comma separated text files rather than automatically exporting it to the Excel software, because often what happens when you do that is you can pick up a lot of the formatting that the accounting software embeds in the Excel spreadsheet, and that can give you problems in terms of fields adding up or locked fields, etc. So we've exported that. What we now need to do is open Excel. So I'll just run that. Now, these are our bank statements in Excel, but I will open the General Ledger report on the bank account we just created. There it is, and it is in a format that needs slight adjusting. You'll notice it's all jumbled together there, pretty easily done. It's a comma separated file, and you'll notice everything's nicely split, and you then finish. And I'll just size this so that you can see it. And what we now need to do is just clean up this information to make it comparable with our bank statements. Now, remember, we're doing expenses, so we're doing this area here. We don't need to do deposits. We've done all those, so perhaps we get rid of them. We don't need to know this information here, so let's get rid of that. And now we're left with the area 1. Now, what we really need to do here is just sort this information by dollar value for the period that we're looking at. So you go into data sort, we'll sort it by field E. This is the one we're doing here. So, and this will line up all our information from the smallest to the biggest. Now, we don't need any of this, so let's just get rid of that so that it doesn't put too much information in our sheet. Now, that effectively are the expenses for the period. Now, I, as mentioned earlier, would expect this to be a much bigger report. You could have thousands of entries here, or several hundred at least. These are all the entries. Now, what we need to do is try and compare them to the bank statements. Now, if you've got electronic access to your bank statements, it shouldn't be difficult to then go into your withdrawals for your bank statements. So let's select all our withdrawals. We'll copy those and we will place them onto our sheet where we have the other deposits, other withdrawals. So let's just do that. We'll then move this down and place that, and I sometimes prefer to do it like this. Alright. So now you can see we've got the data matched up. This area here effectively is the accounting file, yep, and this here effectively is the bank statement. Now, sometimes it's best just to run a little formula, subtracting one from the other. This is a nice, easy way of telling you that if the difference is 0, they've got to be the same. That can be very handy in being able to see it. Now, it automatically is producing some fields here. Now, one of the interesting things that's happening here is you'll notice that this 10.9 is up here and this 8970.51 is there. Now, that's effectively because we're missing something, so we need to paste those down. This now is 0, and the difference is here will now be 0 and again in here. And effectively the difference there now is 7215. I mean, you could do a formula for that. Now you'll notice this difference here is in fact connected with our outstanding expense. We had an outstanding check and that's it. So that's why it's missing. But look, we're looking for $81.01 and we've got it already. Sorry, $81.06. There it is. So you now have your transactions. This doesn't always work to perfection, but it is extremely useful in dealing with large amounts of data. You'd be surprised if this was 500 columns long, just how many zeros you get, and you instantly know you don't need to check those items. You just don't need to check them. So there's no real need to go and cross and tick off every one. Now, there are reasons why sometimes this can get complicated, because there can be a lot of outstanding checks and some of them will cause the fields to split in the middle, you know, this issue here. But it does work, it is a time saver, and if you can do it, and again, remember, you may find that in your particular case you had a large error that was 8,000, but all of a sudden you hit 7,950 of it in one go. You're only out another now $50 or $60. That could be your cue to end the bank rec, force the balance. No problem with forcing a balance, so long as you've done it in a way that tells you you've not got a big error hidden inside something that looks like a small error.